Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and ordinarily I like to be clean-shaven for these reviews, but I feel like I can get away with letting my beard grow out a little bit because I'm talking about a song that was chosen in December, and it's the middle of February. I am very behind, but yes, it is finally the turn of Albania to come under my personal microscope for the 2023 season. Yes, indeed, we've had another Merry Thickmas, and I am, as has become tradition, very late in talking about the song. This year, Albania will be represented by the seemingly very appropriately named Albina and Familja Kelmendi, which is to say, Albina and the Kelmendi family, consisting of Albana, Albin, Buja, Sidorella, and Vesa Kelmendi, and the song Duje, which is presented fully in Albanian, specifically the Gheg dialect of Albanian. The title Duje, which I believe is Doje in either Tosk or Standard Albanian. I don't know the full ins and outs of the language, but it means love it, or love him, love her, love them. I believe that's how it's to be interpreted. There are a couple of ways of translating it. I'm trying to be as accurate as possible. Anyway, music by Enis Mulai, and lyrics by a personal favourite Albanian lyricist of mine, Eriona Roshiti. It's been a couple of years since I've last said that name. So, Albania, where do I begin apologising for being so slow in reviewing your song? So, Duje then, in as few words as possible. Yep, this is a Festivaliting song, alright. And I don't mean that as an insult. It's right in line with the sort of thing that I have come to expect from Albania over the years that I've been reviewing Eurovision songs. And while I think the song as is isn't quite ready for the Eurovision stage, I think there is a lot of good material to work with here. Make no mistake, as an FIK entry, it's not supposed to be Eurovision ready right out of the gate, and that's fine. The important thing is, it's full of promising ideas that could, honestly, come to life by the time we see the Kelmendi clan in Liverpool. That being said, if they play their cards wrong, I could very much see this getting lost in the shuffle, and I could say from one listen alone that this song deserves better than to fade into total obscurity. Then again, my sources do tell me that this year is shaping up to be incredibly chaotic, naming no names, so who can say what will happen in May? Certainly not May. Anyway, let's get down to the meaty, chunky business times. What might you like about this song? Well, first and foremost, it is very, as I said, it's very much a Festivaliting song. What stands out about it is it's unmistakably Albanian in every way, not just in the language, but in the presentation. All the hallmarks are there: the composition, the arrangement, the vocals and the way the vocals fluctuate, the harmonies, and, to reiterate, the language. Thus, it makes for a very strong means of representing Albania. And international fans who appreciate a country bringing national authenticity to the contest are bound to appreciate that. While I'm no expert in the field, I think I can see why it did so well at Festivaliting. While I can't say for certain whether or not that will translate into points on the night of the semi-finals, though, I do think it ties neatly into my next point. Albina and her family all bring clear dedication and commitment to the song. Although I don't instinctively know what it's about without looking up the lyrics, I at least find it easy to believe that Team Kelmendi have great amounts of investment in it and believe every word they're singing. That's a vocal quality that you cannot fake, so if this ends up in front of juries, they are bound to receive some well-deserved appreciation there. Finally, let's come back to the topic of the lyrics. I am going to touch upon this again later on in the video, but I find that the lyrics have a profound presence to them, a gravity of sorts, having read the translation and tried to understand it as best I can in context. From what I gather, the song concerns keeping a relationship alive because of the simple fact that after a certain point, it affects more than just the people directly within the relationship. In this particular instance, marriage. Specifically, this song seems to address two parents going through stormy times and urging them not to divorce or kill the love for the sake of their children, for their wider family. There is absolutely more nuance to the subject than just that, but if we interpret it as coming from a place of don't do irreversible psychological and emotional damage in response to something that is actually rather petty in the grand scheme of things, then it makes for a really good message. Like I said though, we'll come back to that in a moment because there are other ways of interpreting it that may not be so charitable, but take it as it's intended to be taken and yeah, it's a solid message. Now, on the other side of matters, things that you personally may not like about this song. Admittedly, two of the major gripes that I managed to draw up largely stem from the song's presentation at Tessellating, so take them with a grain of salt, which really you should be doing anyway. Think critically and think for yourself. But honestly, I had a lot of trouble engaging with the live performance on first listen. I found the live performance to be relatively unremarkable, but I recognise that that could well be a personal issue on my part, but I mean, that's what opinions are, right? They shouldn't need crazy colours and fireworks, of course, but I still felt as though something was a bit lacking and that the stage swallowed them up a little bit as a result. I at least appreciate the symbolism of the outfits, the movements, that all makes sense to me now that I know what the lyrics mean, but the Eurovision audience largely won't have that advantage going into it, so bear that in mind, I guess. Similarly, the song's overall structure strikes me as a little bit on the chaotic side almost, listening to it with ears that aren't natively Albanian. Seeing it written down, it is actually a lot more straightforward than it sounded on first listen, but in the moment, it sort of subverts the listener's expectations just a little bit too hard, thus making it a bit tricky to mentally keep up with, if that makes sense. On a similar note, the instrumental itself, the studio version is largely good from what I've heard, but could use some slight polishing up, in my opinion, and I felt that the FIK orchestra, the way they performed it, that rendition, while impressive for a live orchestra, I'm not going to put that down, but I feel like that rendition detracted from the song's impact, so musically, it's sort of in a bit of a lose-lose no man's land at the present moment, but I doubt that will still be an issue in May. Now, finally, as promised, another thought on the front of the lyrics. This is extremely situational, and the song isn't intended to address nuances like this. But if I talked about other interpretations about Croatia's song last year, then I sort of owe it to everyone to talk about it here as well. For some people, the message of the song can be read as problematic because it could be interpreted as you should stay in a toxic relationship under the pretense of it being better for all involved. In reality, there are some disputes, marital or otherwise, that threaten to engulf more than just the relationship in question if they aren't dealt with, and you'll do more harm to your kids at the table by forcing yourselves to stay together than by allowing for a natural separation. As I said though, this is a situational interpretation, and there is no one-size-fits-all solution, nor is this song intending to offer one. This is just another way of looking at it. You can see it in the positive way, you can see it in the less positive way. It's all down to the individual, really, but I don't think they were intending to say anything problematic, but yeah, your mileage probably will vary. In the meantime, though, let's start looking at some numbers while I play with my hair irritatingly. For the present moment, I find my personal opinion score landing on a high 6, but with absolute unquestionable room for that to definitely go up because I feel like I'm being way too harsh. By the time May rolls around, I could definitely see that number jumping up by 2 or even 3 entire points because I do appreciate this sort of music. Right now, though, I find it a little bit too easy to forget about. I recognise that that is on me, that's not the song's fault. I'm just not giving it the full attention that it deserves. but I do feel that there are aspects that can and will be tightened up in time for Liverpool that haven't been yet. There's no issues when it comes to the conviction behind the vocals or the pride behind the musical arrangement though, so I honestly believe that any changes between now and May would be for the better. As I said before, I see potential here. As for the technical side of things, lyrical quality, for what I can understand, I will say 2. I admit I found myself wavering here because the song repeats the refrain a fair bit, but if we interpret it as being from the perspective of a child whose parents are separating, who doesn't have the full picture of why that might be, the notion behind it is honestly rather poignant in its innocence. On the musical side, I'll say 1 out of 2 for the moment. At this second in time, I think it's great but undersold by the orchestra at Hexagons, and the studio version fixes those issues but then replaces them with a raft of different ones. There is promise at the moment, but I think a fresh remastering wouldn't go amiss, and it's Albania. They usually do give their songs a second seeing to later down the line, so no worries there. Delivery quality, 2 out of 2, easily. Fantastic and impressive vocals, not just from Albania and Albina as star of the show, but from everyone involved, the entire Familja Kelmendi. I already praised their conviction and dedication to the performance, but that's relevant here and now as well, alongside their capacity for, not being out of tune. Basically, they are great live performers as a unit, and they are a unit. As for staging potential, I'm going to say 1 out of 2, because it has plenty of it, but it is just potential at this stage. It's tricky, really, because the symbolism from FIK was subtle enough that it was actually totally lost on me without knowing the lyrics. But if they go too far the other way with representing the message, it could be so ham-fisted that it would undermine the quiet gravity of the song's story. So they could absolutely smash it staging-wise, but there is a wide margin for error in both directions. And appeal-wise, again, for the present moment, 1 out of 2. That isn't to say that the song is bad or too esoteric or anything like that. It's just that someone not attuned to Albanian music may have difficulty engaging with it and its structure on first listen. And then there's the whole matter of the lyrics and how different people will find different things, good and bad, in what's being said. Still, I think that hypothetical remastering that I keep mentioning could very well enhance the Albanian flavours in such a way that will get the international audience on side, as it did with TessHex and Karma, and to an extent Mal as well. We will have to see what comes. For now, though, that is a technical total of 7 out of 10 for a combined score of 13 out of 20. It might look disappointing presented this way, but the more I think about it, the more convinced I am that that score will definitely go up by the time the contest actually happens. It is still early days at this point. Now, is Albania moving in the right direction at Eurovision? I think so, generally speaking. The big thing this year is that Tessellating has now separated the jury votes from the public votes, and the winner of each vote counts as something different. So the jury decides who wins Tessellating, but the public decides who goes to Eurovision. In broad strokes, that's a good thing. A good FIK entry and a good Eurovision-ready song are 2 completely different beasts. My main concern, though, is that both prizes are awarded in the same competition, so you're either going to end up with a Tessellating where half the songs are just trying to be Eurovision-friendly at the expense of Albanian tradition, or all of them are FIK-friendly, and we just get the one most popular with the public at Eurovision, which doesn't address the disconnect between the needs of the 2 festivals. Make no mistake, I think it's a good step, but I just wouldn't call it a perfect solution just yet, but it's certainly a good step. Now, is Albania going to qualify this year? Well, if I had made this review a little bit closer to on time and not 2 months late, I think it would have been harder to make this call, but now, well, it is still difficult to say, not least because at the time of writing this review I hadn't heard any of the other songs apart from Ukraine, but well, Albania's in semi-final too, so in theory it just has to be better received than 6 other songs in order to qualify, and that's totally possible. But it does, for now at least, strike me as the sort of song that juries would favour a bit more than the public would, and of course the juries can't do anything about the semi-final results. So I think a qualification is very much within the realms of possibility, but it's definitely not a guaranteed thing. I think most likely I could see this landing anywhere between 7th and 13th when the voting lines close, for now. I could completely change my tune in May. It depends on what we get from other countries and on what Albania does to this song, if anything at all. But that's just me. Over to you, lovely people. What do you think? As ever, listen to the song for yourself, form your own thoughts, think critically, think complexly, follow your heart, all of the regular cliches, have your own opinion, that's what matters. And to Albina and the rest of the Familja Kelmendi, I wish you the very best of luck, and we will see how you fare in Liverpool.